Grant Hill, Turner Sports NCAA analyst. He will join Jim Nance, Bill Raftery, Tracy Wolfson for the 5th consecutive year calling the NCAA tournament. And the tournament available on TBS, CBS, TNT, True TV, and streaming on March Madness Live. I'm looking at the numbers here, Grant. You're 3 years older than Vince Carter, and I think Vince is coming back for one more year.
Yeah, no, I am 3 years old. I feel like I'm maybe 33 years older than Vince. But, he has been amazing. And we are neighbors here in Florida. You know, obviously I helped recruit him to the Hawks, vice chairman of the team. And we spent a lot of time on the golf course. And but he's been a great addition in the locker room with Trae Young, John Collins, and as we're building a culture with young guys, his contributions in the locker room have been fantastic. And then, oh, by the way, he can still play.
Would you rather have Vince Carter's career or Dirk Nowitzki's career?
You know, I'll take either one of them. I think both of them were fantastic, and both of them. You know, what I love about them is they're both just really good, solid people. And obviously Dirk, you know, has the championship, which is pretty fantastic. But, I think Vince Carter, he doesn't get enough credit for what he did in Canada and making that the game of basketball exciting, and relevant. And just, you see it now. You see the impact is all these players from Toronto and Canada now playing in college basketball and the NBA, and really just, I'm old enough to remember. I had to guard him, so I remember Vinsanity at its height, and just a fantastic player and one of the best to ever do it.
We had a poll question. If you could start your team with any of these power forwards, McLovin, give Grant the list.
Okay, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Kevin Garnett, Kevin McHale, Tim Duncan.
Got to pick one, Grant.
I'll go with Tim Duncan.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think I was going to say?
Well, I wasn't sure because I think Tim, there was a team around him all the time. I don't think he ever had to be that guy that had to get 30 points, whereas Malone had to be that guy. McHale was not that guy. I think McHale's actually underrated. I thought he was unstoppable. His low post moves were as good as anybody who's ever played the game, and very good defensively as well. But he was in Bird and Parrish and everybody else's shadow there. But, even Barkley, too. What he did at that size is truly remarkable. And even Kevin Garnett was freakishly great at that size. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. It feels like Duncan would win because he had more team success.
Well, I agree. They all were great. And I agree that McHale was so underrated. I was a Laker fan, so I was not a big fan of his, but he was as good as anyone. But my thing is with Duncan, he did have a great team around him.
Yep.
But do you think he could have been that 30-point a game player if he needed to be?
He wasn't a good free throw shooter, and I don't know if he had moves where he could break you down. I think he knew what he could do well, and he mastered that. But I don't, Barkley could break you down. Malone could break you down. KG could. Dirk had range. So I don't think Tim could have been a 30-point a night guy. I think he had a couple of 25-point seasons, but I just didn't look at him as unstoppable. Whereas Dirk at times, Barkley at times, like those guys were unstoppable at times in their career.
Yeah, no, good point. Fair point.
I want to know, when you made the call with Villanova winning the NCAA title at the buzzer, I'm watching it last night. And I'm watching and I'm listening because I want to hear how Jim Nance sets it up and then what is said before that shot is taken by Jenkins. You say they have a play. Now, I don't know if you knew it and you didn't want to say what it was, but in the moment, which I always define greatness, what do you say when you need to say it? And you said, watch for Jenkins. Now, he was the trailer on the play, but what did you know prior to that play that helped Villanova win the national title?
Good question. Well, I first of all, in those moments, and you know this, Dan, typically you lay out and you let the iconic voice of a Jim Nance let him make the call. And it's funny. I thought back to, I didn't know that they had this particular play, but so I didn't. It wasn't like I'll be honest. It wasn't like I scouted something and knew that they had a particular set. But when I saw Jenkins, their best shooter, taking the ball out, I actually thought of a play that we used to run when I played for the Pistons. And it was a play where Terry Mills, another guy, big guy who could really shoot the ball from the perimeter, would take the ball out. And because he had gone to Michigan, the play was called Michigan. And I would basically bring the ball up and dribble up the court and try to dribble at his man and flip it back to him for a top-of-the-key three. And Doug Collins, who was our coach, put that play in. And the funny thing was, we would run it any time during the game. He'd take the ball out, and he'd say Michigan. And so he and I would be the only guys that would know that. And so we'd come down the court, I'd dribble into the paint, turn around, flip it back to him, and he'd shoot a three. And so in that moment, I was thinking of that play. I was thinking of Michigan, believe it or not. I was thinking of Terry Mills. And so that's what came to my mind. And thankfully, Arcidiacono passed it back to Jenkins, and he hit the shot, and it made me look good.
Talking to Grant Hill, Turner Sports NCAA analyst. He'll be on the call with Jim Nance, Bill Raftery, Tracy Wolfson. This will be the 5th consecutive year calling the NCAA tournament. There's a whole lot of pressure on this Duke team, and I'm wondering, can you quantify the pressure put on them? Can you look back at maybe the Fab Five with the Michigan freshmen, and that was early in your career as well, that those kids as freshmen, they made it to the title game back-to-back years. They didn't win, but just the amount of pressure where you're expected to win, you're expected to be great. How do you think this Duke team handles that amount of pressure? And is it similar, do you think, to the Fab Five?
Well, it is similar, and it's similar in the sense the Fab Five were freshmen. I think the Fab Five's first year, they weren't picked to be the favorites. I don't think anyone expected them that first year when we ultimately played them in Minnesota. They upset some teams. They beat a very good Ohio State team in the regional. No one saw that happening. I think this Duke team, from the time that they beat Kentucky in the preseason back in November, everyone has had this expectation on them to be the eventual champion. And so it's a little bit different in that regard. Obviously, the next year when Michigan and the Fab Five came back, I think the expectations were great, and they certainly got back there. But to be so young and to not have that 1 year of experience under their belt and to have everyone assume that they'll get there is a lot. But these kids have handled it well. Obviously, Coach K has, I think, insulated them and prepared them. And you just think about this season. I mean, they've had some signature road wins. They've had buzzer beaters. They've had adversity. They've been through a lot, and all of those experiences, including those losses, I think have helped them and put them in a nice, position now that they have a chance, a realistic chance of winning the whole thing.
When's the last time you picked somebody else other than Duke to win the title? And did you hear from Coach K?
So just so you know, when I do my brackets, I always pick Duke to win.
Okay.
So every 5 years or so, I look good. And
and you're picking them this year?
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And
I haven't heard from Coach K. He hasn't called me. But I'll see him in Columbia, so I'm excited about that.
All right. Has he ever given you grief on your analysis of Duke?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. And you have to understand, look, Coach K, we have a great relationship, and obviously I'm grateful that 25 years later, after I graduated, my coach is still there. And so you talk about tremendous connectivity to the program and to him, and that's awesome. But there's still a part of me that feels like I'm 18 years old and I'm in trouble when I'm in his presence. I don't know if that ever changes.
Okay, but wait, be honest. How often did you get yelled at, and how often did Leitner get yelled at in practice?
Well, part of the problem was I was getting yelled at by both of them. So, I mean, we got yelled at. I mean, it was I mean, obviously in '92. Look, I'll say this: Coach K. What I respected about him was that he was hardest on his best players, and a lot of coaches will coddle their best players and sort of have whipping boys who are on the bench who are more in reserve roles. But he went at Leitner hard, not all the time, but he went at him hard. He went at me hard, and that's what you want. You want to be coached. You want to improve. You want to get better. And he did it like my senior year. My senior year, we lose in the ACC tournament before the NCAA tournament. And we lost in the game to Virginia that we probably should have won. And, he went at me. He went at me after the game and even when we met in his hotel room. And so he held you accountable. He pushed you. And you didn't always understand it maybe when you were a teenager, but you certainly now, as you look back, you appreciate it, and you're grateful for that.
Good to catch up with you, Grant. Hopefully we'll talk to you during the tournament. Have fun, and thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
That's Grant Hill, Turner Sports NCAA analyst, and he'll be there with Jim Nantz, Bill Raftery, Tracy Wolfson. This will be the 5th consecutive year calling the NCAA tournament.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.